when do you think there'll be a division contender, maybe even a World Series contender? How far out are we for that?
Wow. Do you see a game one playoff starter anywhere in the vicinity of the north side of Chicago?
Not right now. No.
Do you see a middle of the order? Do you see one middle of the order bat that looks anything remotely like Goldschmidt or Arenado?
Diehard Cubs fans would probably say Patrick Wisdom, but I won't sip the Kool-Aid, Gordon. I know you won't either.
I would hope the diehards are a little wiser than that, because that's a lot of strikeouts. And, I talk about Nick Madrigal basically does one thing. Wisdom does one thing. He hits the ball a long way when he connects.
Right.
Eddie, and, he can at times be good in the field too.
What do you think about the Cubs rotation? I don't think they're going to replicate last year, but there's certainly a lot of young, controllable pitchers that we'll get a chance to see this season.
It's interesting when you say that, and I agree with you. It's the same. I mean, Wade Miley's not there, but he only made, half dozen starts anyway.
Right.
But Smiley's back, and he had a nice run for him when he finally got himself healthy. Wisniewski's back for an entire run now, after looking pretty good in September. Justin Steele's back for what they hope is going to be an actual full season for the first time. Stroman's back. Remember, he had some health issues last year. He's back for an opening day start. And then you add Jamison Ty onto that. So, if you do want to sip some Kool-Aid, and you want, the optimism of opening day at its fullest, go ahead and dream on that a little bit, because if everything falls just right, they have a chance to perform. And they've got enough arms in the bullpen, you would think you could hold some leads. Problem is, they're not going to score a ton of runs. You have to win a lot of 3-2 games, 4-2 games, that kind of thing. It's not impossible. But if you're going to ask me, what's the thing on this pitching staff that I'm most intrigued by, or that I think has the chance to really impress, you might say, well, Justin Steele, look what he did last year. And you might be right. Watch Hayden Wisniewski. I really like this kid. I've said it since probably the Philadelphia start last September, and I've said it all winter. Going into spring, I thought he was their best chance to compete this year by him making the rotation. He did. He earned it. He pitched his ass off. And I think he has a chance, especially in the 5 spot at the back end of that rotation, where at least early in the season, he's going to see 4s and 5s as opposing pitchers. He's going to have a chance to really have an impact in terms of winning games. Whether it's the team winning his starts or him actually winning the games. I think he's got a chance to get more run support facing those opponents. They've got much better fielding team behind him than they did a year ago. And this guy can pitch. I just love his poise and his stuff. I picked him. He's my pick to win Rookie of the Year.
Bold prediction, but I think you're right. And I think he's definitely better than 4 or 5s on other teams by far. He could end up moving up in this rotation by season's end if he's that effective.
I think he's in this rotation. I think it's very possible, if not likely, that he's better than the 5. Some of the other ones, I don't know. I mean, he's probably a 5 in the Brewers rotation.
Well, in that case, for sure. Now, I wanted to ask you about the Cubs pitching in general. I mean, last year, whether it was an aberration or not, it was certainly impressive. Lots of young arms this season. This is something we really didn't see too much of in 2015, 2016, 2017. Why do you think the Cubs have found a way to, or how have they found a way to start developing these young arms?
Well, I'm going to push back just a little bit, a little bit, because I think there's some good signs here. I think there's, between what Craig Breslow's done and what Dan Kantrovitz has done, and they brought those guys in and given them voices of authority here just in recent years, I think we're starting to see what could lead to some significant change in that regard at the big league level. So far, we're seeing it in the bullpen, and that's good. That's fine. Where your test of your farm system is when you talk about developing pitchers is starting pitching. That is hard to do. And it appears to be especially hard for the Cubs, at least since Theo and Jed took over. I mean, there was no pitching development for 8-9 years or more in that stretch until they made some of these recent changes, and they made changes along the way then. So if you look at it, we talked about Wisniewski. He was acquired in a trade from the Yankees at the trade deadline last summer. Ben Brown's one of their prospects. He was acquired at the trade deadline last summer. Alzolai's homegrown, but for all the hype he got, he didn't pan out. He wasn't good enough to stick in the rotation. He's still got a really nice arm. He still had some health issues, and we'll see what he does. He might find himself a niche in. He's a great kid. He's a kind of guy you root for, and he's got enough of an arm, sure, but he's not a starter. Justin Steele's the one, right? And keep in mind, he finished on the IL last year, and that's been an issue for him throughout his minor league career too. And by the way, Justin Steele was already there before some of these more recent changes happened. So they've got some guys. Caleb Killian in the system came over in the Bryant trade. They do have some first rounders that they picked in recent years who are well regarded. We'll see how they matriculate through the system and what they wind up doing when and if they get the big leagues. But I don't think we can start saying they've changed this call it a narrative if you want, this track record. It seems to be coming, right? And we're seeing especially signs in the bullpen, and that's not nothing. But until Justin Steele backs it up with a full year, and then he kind of becomes established as a regular big league starter, and we see somebody come in behind him that they've drafted and developed, in addition to those bullpen arms, then I think we're not there yet.